Hello, I am Mary Crone, and I have been a volunteer with Ministry and Medical Missions for several years. And today I am visiting with Joan Guite, and who is a co-founder, along with Marilyn Cloquet, of Ministry and Medical Missions. And we also have Dr. Emmanuel Mareus. He's affectionately known as Dr. Manno, and he is from Haiti and from the clinic that Ministry and Medical Missions supports. So we're here to talk a bit about Ministry and Medical Missions and its activities today. So I'm going to start with Joan. Joan, I understand that the Ministry and Medical Missions started, it was born out of some contacts that were made after the earthquake that hit Haiti in 2010. So can you tell us just a little bit about how MMM started?
Yes, Marilyn Cloquet and I put a team together after the earthquake, and we were in Port-au-Prince probably about it was about 2.5 months after the earthquake. So we were not seeing patients with crush injuries or types of injuries like that due to the actual earthquake. We were caring for patients who were post-traumatic patients, those that hadn't been receiving their diabetic medication or medication for high blood pressures. It was not unusual for us to see young people with blood pressures well over 200, over 110. And a lot of this was due to the stress of going through the earthquake and the stress of not having food, not having water, not being able to provide for their families. So the pastor that we worked with, his church was not damaged by the earthquake. And when we came with our team and probably 15 suitcases filled with medication and medical supplies, we just came to his parking lot and said to him, "We are here, we want to help, what do you want us to do?" And so we were guided by him as to what the need was in that particular area of Port-au-Prince. After our 2 weeks, the pastor of this church asked us if we would be interested in returning. And yes, we were. We were committed to not just be a team that goes from one place to another, and we wanted to care for patients and give them continuity of care. So we returned the following year, and we went to his youth camp, which is the first and only Christian youth camp in Haiti at the time. And we worked there for 3 years, and on our 3rd year we met Dr. Manno and worked with him during those 2 weeks. And then he asked us if we return, would we live at his home and work at his clinic and develop mobile clinics where we would go out to different villages to do our care for the patients. And we've been working together, and it's been 7 years now, and we're very excited to hopefully go back in this coming February.
I believe we have a map up that shows Limbe is circled in red, and it is located in the northern part of Haiti. It's about 45-minute drive northwest of Cap Haitian, which, as Joan mentioned, is where the team usually arrives in Haiti. Well, Joan was happy to have connected with Dr. Manno at those clinics, and they shared a common vision for what kind of medical care they'd like to see provided. And we are privileged to have Dr. Manno with us. And so I wanted to start with some questions for you, Dr. Manno. So I'm sure that when you completed your training, you had a lot of opportunity that you could have gone to do something that was far more financially advantageous for you. But you chose to go back and have your clinic in Limbe. Can you talk a little bit about that decision?
Yes, I had the privilege to study medicine in the Dominican Republic. As I was about to graduate, I had to decide how to invest and where to invest my career. I was lucky enough to speak several languages: French, Creole, English, Spanish. So finding a job wouldn't be that hard for me. But I had in my contact, I knew a woman that I call her Mom Grandma, in a discussion with her about the problem in Haiti and my community. I was kind of critical about life in the community because we only had a tent, I would say, served by a nurse helper. So she was the one that was doing everything that the doctor was supposed to do. And I was very critical about it, that in a community that pray so much, why this community is served so poorly. And I was very critical about the Christian communities that we keep saying our Father in heaven, but in the reality we don't treat each other as brothers. And that lady told me, Manno, you can be part of the problem or part of the solution. So that's the moment that I decided to go to Haiti without knowing where I will be working or even how I'm going to get paid. And I did, and when I look back, that's the best decision I've ever taken.
Hey, Dr. Manno, I understand that you had one patient in particular that helped you to focus on diabetes. Could you tell us a little bit about that story?
During my practice, after several years, I didn't see any diabetic patients. And I know the prevalence of diabetes in the Dominican Republic, where I was doing my internship. And I asked one of the old doctors, where are the diabetic? And he told me that, those patients don't stay around very long, because by the time you are diagnosed with type 1 diabetic in Haiti, you only have 1 or 2 years to live. That was his answer. And then later on, I met a diabetic came to the clinic who didn't even have a glucometers. And she was a very young, beautiful lady in her early 20s, or I would say teenager. And we sit and talk. One thing I remember from her, she explained to me how her life, she has been sick all her life, and that she's a burden for her family. And she wanted to die. She's a burden because almost every month she has to be admitted, and she's using up all the family resources, and the family know that she won't make it. It's just an investment that will not come back in a way, because in Haiti, all parents, they are investing in their kids so that when they get older, the kids are like their life insurance, that the kids will take care of them. So for this young lady, it doesn't make sense for a family to invest in her while she won't be there for them when they get old. And after 2 or 3 weeks, I met one of her sisters. When I asked about her, she told me she died with a kind of relief. That patient really is the turning point in my practice. And since then I said, life shouldn't be a burden, it's a gift. And that's how I was introduced to the diabetic world, and since then I'm involved with the diabetic.
Okay, well that's a very interesting story, and I think in my research I've tried to find good data about Haiti, and it's sometimes kind of hard to find solid data. But in general, there seems to be agreement that about half of the population in Haiti lives on less than $1 a day, and something on the order of like 80% of the population lives on less than $2 a day. So can you talk a little bit about what would be the cost to a diabetic patient for their care normally in Haiti? And how would that relate to what they have for income?
Okay, let's be generous. According to the data, about 60% of the Haitian population live on less than $1 a day. So let's put it 60% of the population live with $2 US a day. So we have, for a typical family of 3 kids, usually, but most families they have 5 kids. Let's think that the income is $60 US a month. So if a family happen to have one member with type 1 diabetic, just to be tested, it costs $1 US a day. So this kid, there's no way this kid can be tested every day. So if the kid were to be tested every day, half of the income would go to just on strips. Now, for the insulin, 1 vial of insulin costs about $20 US. It gives you an idea that almost $50 US from 60 will go for the treatment. So there is no way a family with $60 US a month can take care of a diabetic kid. Now you understand why those people aren't around very long, because they can't afford the treatment. That's what it costs. It costs more than half, almost all the income for 1 month will go only for the treatments.
I think for a lot of people in the U.S., it's hard to even comprehend living on that amount of money and a family with so little resources. So can you talk a little bit about how many diabetics you have in your practice and why there seems to be so much diabetes in Haiti?
We have a lot of theories about diabetes. And as a medical student, I learned that obesity has a direct relationship with diabetes, and also being inactive has a direct relationship with obesity. But in my practice, it's totally different. Out of 500 diabetic patients that we have, not even 5 of them is obese. And all of those over 500 patients, they walk every day. They are very active. So we have to look for other reasons. And now I'm really scared because every day we learn, we have new information about diabetes. We started with less than 50 diabetic patients. Now we have over 500. And half of the diabetic patients doesn't know they're diabetic. So if you go to a community, you find 50 diabetic patients. So those 50, you can add another 50 to it. Mm-hmm. So most of the people that are diabetic don't know that they are diabetic. So the number of patients that we see at the clinic will keep increasing every day. And that's the fear that I have, that this number is going to increase as they know that this clinic is dedicated to the patients that suffer type 1, type 2 diabetic, and the kind of care that we are giving. So the number of patients that we have will be increasing every day.
I've heard that there's some theories that malnutrition contributes to a predisposition to diabetes.
Yes, I believe it's not just diabetes. When a child in his early age, this child needs proteins, vitamins, and minerals to grow. So for any child that doesn't get what they need for the fully development, is going to have some kind of problems, and diabetic is one of them. According to the literature, that malnutrition has an impact on the development of the pancreas and its function, and that's why we see diabetes in the poor country. And also related with the genes, with the race. Hispanic and black people, they are more, I would say, they develop diabetic more often than some other type of race. And also the stress.
The stress of low income.
Yes, of life. It's not in the book, but I meet a lot of patients that will tell you exactly the moment they develop diabetics, and they will tell you the stressor that was in their life. Okay. They will tell you that the moment that they lose this child, this son, that was everything financially for the family, or the moment that they lose a husband. So they will tell you exactly. And I know a lot of patients that would come to the clinic and say they started to be diabetic after the earthquake. So there's always like this stress in their life, and they will tell you. It's not in the book, but according to those patients, they can relate, they can date the beginning of the symptoms with the stressor in their life.
Yes, and the earthquake being a major stressor for many of the Haitians.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you, Joan, and thank you so much, Dr. Manno. I would just like to point out, if anyone is interested in supporting ministry and medical missions or in volunteering with them, you can reach out. We do have a webpage, which is MMM Haiti, Haiti, Minnesota, MN. So MMMHAITIMN.org if you want more information. Thank you.